Welcome everybody to today's Through the Lens of event here at the House of European History. We're so thrilled to see many of you joining us here, both at the museum and online as well. I'd also like to welcome two of our guests joining us today, Hugh Nini and Neal Treadwell. Hi, Hugh and Neal. Today we are going to be welcoming some wonderful guests who will help us look through the lens of proud lovers in celebration of International Pride Month. Just a quick fun note to our audience today, both those on site as well as those of you online. I want to remind you that we will be raffling off 8 copies of Loving, a Photographic History of Men in Love by a couple of our guest speakers today, Hugh and Neal. Be sure to stick around after each of our Q&As today to see if you have won a copy of this beautiful photographic collection. Our audience on site can enter just over here by submitting your names, and online audiences can enter by leaving a comment or question in our YouTube chat. So every year, International LGBTQ Pride Day is celebrated on June 28th. This day commemorates the riots that occurred in 1969 in Stonewall, located in New York City's Greenwich Village neighborhood. During Pride Day, and really what has grown into Pride Month, marches and collective events are organized around the world to both celebrate and fight for the equality, dignity, and visibility of gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and queer communities. We're gathered here today at the House of European History over a half a century after the events of Stonewall to look through the lens of proud lovers and gain a better understanding of what love has looked like through history, examine what visibility and pride means to some, and to gain insight into the role that pride plays in bringing visibility and equal rights to the LGBTQ+ community throughout Europe and throughout the world. The first piece of our event today is a statement given by Mr. Robert Biedroń, who is a Polish activist and politician. He was Poland's first openly gay MP and elected mayor. He now serves as a member of the European Parliament as part of the S&D group. For nearly 2 decades, Mr. Biedroń has used his voice to champion many important causes, including women's rights and gender equality, the rights of immigrants, and of course, LGBTQ+ rights. We're so grateful that Mr. Biedroń has shared his important statement with us today.
Hello everybody, my name is Robert Biedroń and, which is obvious, I'm gay. I am an openly gay politician from Poland. I'm also deputy in the European Parliament and also a chair of Women's Rights and Gender Committee. I was always determined to make a difference, just like everyone here. I dreamed of a better Poland, Europe and world. A world that is free from any kind of discrimination, of a world that one can trust and that does not leave anyone behind. My priorities are formed in cooperation with regular citizens, thanks to many months of sometimes easy, sometimes difficult, but always inspirational conversations with everyone who came to the meetings with me in the cities and towns throughout Poland. As I said, I was the first openly gay MP, mayor of the city, party leader in Poland, so I really can tell how marginalization and exclusion works and also affects our lives. During one of my first speeches in the Polish parliament, the majority of the house just left. I believe that the reason was not that I was saying something funny, but sadly because of who I am. For a long time before fighting for equality in politics, I was a human rights activist. That gave me experience which I use in parliamentary work now. I founded, for example, and co-created the campaign against homophobia, which is one of the largest non-governmental organizations in Poland and even in Central and Eastern Europe. Some people like to claim that intolerance lives only in our imagination. So please, why don't you tell me about your privileges? For example, how you can marry a person you love, how your love for another human being is legal throughout the whole world, how you can hold your hands in public with pride on your face, not with fear of being discriminated against, how can prejudice be only in our minds if I can't adopt a child with my loving and caring husband who, by the way, cannot be legally my husband. The theme of today's event is LGBTQI plus visibility, and what this visibility means in the context of LGBTQ communities around the world. But why visibility? Visibility because many of those I was just mentioning say that LGBTQI plus visibility is unnecessary or counterproductive. That is flouting or part of a sinister gay agenda, or that is endangers people, risk corrupting them. That is a modern or unnatural phenomenon, or that LGBTQI plus visibility is fashionable or attention seeking. If you don't want to be discriminated against for your sexuality, don't make such a big visible deal about it, they say. Hearing all of that together, you not only realize that it can be all true, but precisely why LGBTQI people visibility is vital, and it's about life itself. We all, regardless of orientation or identification, have a desire, a need to try to find fulfillment, to be ourselves, to feel comfortable in who we are. And so is visibility. The photos dating from the 1850s, from the dawn of photography, of people in love, who just happen to be of the same sex. People like me and you, who found comfort, acceptance, companionship, and love, who could, for a moment, just say, "This is who I love, we are together, and we exist." Photos from all over Europe, from different times. Hugh Nini and Neal Treadwell started collecting photographs of romantically involved men about 20 years ago on. While they were antique shopping, Neal started going through a shoebox with old photographs, and he was flipping through them. He noticed one of a male couple in a loving embrace. They never thought they would find another one. However, 6 months later, they stumbled onto their second photo, and over the years, they have collected hundreds of such photographs taken between the years 1850 and 1950, when male partnerships were often and mostly illegal. So what is the cost of invisibility? Of hiding who you are, how you feel from the outside world, from those closest to you, maybe even from yourself. The personal psychological cost, the cost to your well-being, your happiness at the end. When you are very right to exist, to properly and truly exist, is denied, you must fight back. This is why LGBTQI plus visibility is vital. We, and here I mean all of us, of whatever orientation or identification, we make clear that our European values apply to all. The fight for recognition, for equality, even for basic safety is ongoing. The fight for the right not to be imprisoned or killed becomes the fight for the right to hold hands in public, to have parental rights, to have role models in popular culture such as sport or schools, visitation rights in hospitals, pension rights, being a politician. Much progress has been made. But only the other day, a young professional footballer coming out made the news in the United Kingdom and all around the world. This visibility is good, is inspiring, but shows how much work still needs to be done. Progress will always be uneven, halting. There will be setbacks, there will be backlashes. I myself, as I said, I come from Poland, a country which decriminalized consensual same-sex acts 90 years ago in 1932, yet which does not recognize civil partnerships, let alone same-sex marriage, nor does it have legal protection against hate speech and criminal liability for perpetrators, nor LGBTQ plus inclusive education. A country in the heart of Europe, which according to the latest ILGA Europe report, Poland is the worst EU member state for gay rights policies. And yet, I was elected in the past a mayor of mid-sized Polish city, Słupsk, and yet the president of Poland can call the promotion of LGBTQ plus rights, people like me, an ideology more destructive than communism. How? Because visibility is the key to progress, to showing people that the LGBTQ plus community is not some alien imposition, but your neighbor, bus driver, footballer, cousin, or politician. Perhaps one day the concept for visibility for the LGBTQ plus community will be as strange as an idea as visibility for the blonde people. But until then, visibility, showing up, being visible, being loud, showing the world that we are here, and you must get used to it, that we exist, and that there is fine, is vital. Discourse and international dialogue. That's the main factor to achieve a world where everyone respects themselves, understands basic human rights, and every person's dignity. I am honored that you have invited me for this panel so I could tell you my story, one of a millions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to Mr. Biedroń. Our next speakers, as Mr. Biedroń hinted at, will help us look through the lens of proud lovers since 1850. Americans Hugh Nini and Neal Treadwell started collecting photographs of romantically involved men about 20 years ago. Over the years, they've collected hundreds of these photographs, all taken when male partnerships were often illegal. These touching and personal photos are beautifully displayed in their book, Loving, A Photographic History of Men in Love, 1850s to 1950s. Hugh and Neal join us today to talk about their process of collecting these photos and to offer us a glimpse into some of the moving stories they tell. Please help me welcome Hugh Nini and Neal Treadwell.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I'm Neal Treadwell,
I'm Hugh.
and I think we want to thank the House of European History for having us here to discuss our collection with you today.
Yes, and it was a wonderful introduction. Thank you, everybody. Touching on the themes of visibility and invisibility, which is the story of our collection. If you consider that the photographs that we collect between the 1850s and 1950s during their initial lifetime had to be kept secret, invisible, in order to survive till today for us to have them in our collection. And now our book and our collection are getting the visibility they could not get in their lifetimes.
And an introduction, as they said, when Hugh and I started collecting photographs, it was about 22 years ago now. And the first one we did find in a little antique mall in Dallas, Texas. I found it in a shoebox mixed with some other photographs. And I found it and I said, oh my gosh, this is so interesting. We're going to show it to you in a slideshow. But I ran through the mall to find Hugh and I said, look what I found. We thought we had found, just one of a photograph.
The world that ever existed is
Yeah.
what we thought at the time.
And when we looked at it, we wanted it because it looked like it was looking back at us, like we were seeing ourselves in this photo that was probably about 70 years old. So that started our journey, which we didn't really even know we had started for how many years?
We were probably, quote unquote, collecting, although we didn't think of it that way, for about 5 or 6 years before we realized that we had actually started a collection.
I think we were about 300 photos into collecting when we went, oh, we're actually collecting something.
And when we talk about this with so much uncertainty, consider that when we actually started this thing, We had no intention of starting a collection. We didn't certainly intend to produce a book from the collection. So we're having to reach back in our memory and try to remember 22 years ago what happened when we found the first one and the second one, and then the subsequent photos after that.
And now our collection is over 3,700. So it continues to grow.
So we're going to share screen now with y'all. Of course, it disappeared.
Hold on 1 second. Okay. Sorry, everyone. Okay.
You actually know what you're doing.
There we go. All right. So we're going to go through the collection. When our book launched, we actually launched it in 5 languages, and this is the cover of our book. So you have English, French, German, Italian,
Spanish.
and Spanish. So we were talking about the first photo we collected, and the first photo actually isn't in the book. And so we have it here. It's very small, and the 2 guys in the photograph, if you blow it up very large, they kind of buzz out. So it just didn't have the clarity or the color that reproduced well enough for the book. But this is what I found when I was going through the antique mall in a group of old photos. And to us, it just spoke to us because of the romantic embrace and just the softness and sweetness in their face.
And at the time, 22 years ago, when Neal found this, we thought that it looked like it was probably from the 1920s. And if we had just turned the photograph over, we would have seen at the time that both of these men's names are there, Herb and Walter. And it's dated 1927, so we were actually right about that, considering how new we were to this. And then I think it was probably about 10 or more years later, a duplicate photo of this one showed up in our, not in our collection, we acquired it and put it in our collection. So there were 2 of these at least that were made, and they had very similar inscriptions on the back, not exactly verbatim word for word, but very similar, and both are dated 1927.
And you would think that that's a 1 in a million thing that has happened, but over collecting 22 years, we probably have about 6 or 7 photographs that we have found duplicates of, and they've come from different places in the world. So either the people traveled, or who knows the journey of the photographs. That's what's
We know the
amazing.
journey, and it's not in the slide presentation, but it is a photograph, a postcard photograph that we found at some point, and then got the second one like 10 or 11, 12 years later in Australia. Duplicates that started out in Michigan in the United States, and one ended up in Australia, and then back to us in New York City.
So this is the photograph. It wasn't until about 6 months later that we found the second photograph, which is this one, beautiful photograph of an army man and his buddy, and it says "Always yours, boyfriend," etched in the glass, and it's a beautiful little glass frame.
I'm not sure if it shows up where you are, but the image on the left, the glass frame with their photograph centered in it, below their image, it says, it's etched in the glass, "Always yours." So, very sweet sentiment. So this one, a lot of people wonder, as we do, who took the photographs. And one of the things that we discovered fairly recently, I'd say within the last 5 years or so, is that as early as 1902, you could take your own photograph as a selfie with what these 2 men are using. They're, number one, standing in front of a mirror, so what we're looking at is their reflection, not actually them. If you look down lower, you can see that their camera is sitting on a tabletop, and the man on the left is holding in his left hand, it's slightly upturned left hand like this, what is actually a rubber ball that is connected by a hose to the camera. And when he squeezes the ball, it sends air through the hose, and the air causes the camera shutter to trip, therefore taking their own photograph as a selfie. We think that this one was taken around 1900. Well, we know that it was at least 1902 because what they're using is called the Ferries Shutter Tripper. And it was invented by Joseph Ferries in the United States. It was patented in 1902, and it was one of the ways, one of the earliest ways that you could actually take your own photograph. So we're calling this the earliest selfie of a romantic male couple, taken approximately 1902.
And below the photo, written in white ink on the black matte paper that it was on, said "in the mirror." That's why we were like, "Oh, it's a selfie." And if you look closely at the edges of this photo, you can see that the mirror is leaning against the wall, so it kind of gives it an angled perspective. Oh, this one, yeah. So we love this photograph, and we consider it the first photo of a gay couple getting married. If there's another one out there, we're welcome to someone to share that with us. But it looks like they're acting it out. But when you look closely at the photo, one guy is actually putting the ring on the other one's finger. We just love the sweetness of their face and how they're holding on to each other and hugging in close. And then the umbrella. What? Sorry. And then the umbrella that is behind them, which we found is a theme in a lot of photos. The umbrella, we started, I was putting together photos in groups to trying to figure out how to put them in an album so that they made sense when we were collecting. And one of the groups that kind of emerged out of that was, yes, the umbrella. And the umbrella theme goes back all the way to about 1860. And we found photos up until around mid 1920s of men who took their photos together embracing under an umbrella.
And so I just want to address one thing before we go on to the next slide. You will detect, looking at this photograph, some playfulness and some theatricality. And yes, they're doing that, but there's something that they would have had to have done back then in order not to get in trouble for taking this photograph. There's an old saying that there's truth in every joke. And so we detect a very strong amount of truth in this image of two men thinking that they could get married to each other.
And if you look in the bottom corner, it says a little hash mark with 13. So that is, this photo was taken in 1913. So we find new things as we go along, as we blow up our photos and see more detail in them. So with the theme that we found, we thought we would share a few more. Here are 3 other photographs of men embracing with umbrellas.
One of our in fact, our primary collecting parameter is that when we see two men together, we have to believe that there's some kind of a romantic relationship, which is usually detected in their eyes, in the way that they're posing together, in the way that they actually, the expression on their face, especially the expression in their eyes. The very first umbrella photo that we collected it because of the expression on their faces and in their eyes. And it wasn't until later, as we collected more photographs like that, because of their expression, that the umbrellas started to become more and more prominent and more prevalent, until we finally realized and discovered that this is actually some kind of a theme during that time period, where the umbrella is a stand-in for we're a couple. Okay.
So
go ahead, honey.
Well, I was going to introduce, this is one of the most historical photographs that we have. It's actually one of 5 in a strip. There's 2 photos that are of this couple, and there's 2 in our book. And so go ahead, Hugh.
Yeah, so Neal was saying that this is a photo strip. There are 5, and the middle one is this one, not married but willing to be. And it's an incredibly prescient awareness that they had back in the early 1900s. So somewhere around 120 years ago, before marriage equality was ever a thought or a conversation, let alone. These 2 young men had the awareness to hold this sign up. It is a sign that would have been a standard prop in a photographer's studio. A photographer would have had, hats, funny hats, umbrellas, signs like this, tools, yeah, musical instruments. And the idea was for the photographer to get the subjects to take more and more photographs so he could make more and more money. And one of the things in the studio would have been this sign, and it would have been meant for a young heterosexual man who was coming in to get his photograph taken with his hair cut, nice suit, shaved, and ready to present himself to society. And at the end of it, he would have held up this sign. This young man, single, would have said to the women out there, "Hey, ladies, I'm not married, but I'm willing to be married to you, ladies." This young couple, who was posing as a male couple romantically involved, had the awareness of mind 120 approximately years ago to hold the sign up to say, "We're not married to each other, but we're willing to be married to each other." And it's just, when you consider the time period, when you consider how there were no support groups, no legal actions in the courts that were looking to establish marriage equality for male couples and female couples, it is an amazing sense of awareness that they would have had at that time to hold this up and say, it's for us. And this is one of the other photographs in the strip of 5 that confirms our notion that they were looking for each other and not other people.
So they're holding a parasol or umbrella.
Again,
Yeah, and then you'll see that their hands are gently overlaying the little finger onto the other one's hand, but they have this most adorable look in their eyes, just gazing into each other's eyes. And if you look closely, and we didn't notice when we first had the photograph, they have matching suits, matching ties. So
matching collars,
it's everything.
it hits all the bells and whistles, the umbrella, the dress alike, the expression. When we talk about expression, look at this.
And the strip of the 5 photographs together tell a beautiful story. Okay, this is, it's a photograph, but it's actually a tintype. And this style of tintype is actually called a 1-incher because I think it's probably the smallest photograph or image we have, and it's about the size of your thumbnail. So it's a little less than 1 inch, which I don't know what that translates into metrics, but it's the 1-inch tintype they were only taken for about 5 years, from around 1860, 1865, in that time frame, and more than likely it was used to put into some type of jewelry. Hugh, and just say this really quick, Hugh and I are collectors of photographs. We're learning about photography as we go along.
Not experts.
So we always ask people, if you hear something that we're saying that might not be totally correct, to let us know. But we were told that the 1-inch tintypes were only taken for about 5 years. Tintypes in general, 1865 or 1860 to 1865, if I said that wrong. And then tintypes, larger ones, were taken all the way up into the early 1900s. And it was like the Polaroid back in that time. It was the cheapest way to have your photograph made. There wasn't a negative or anything else. The process was really simple, and they were usually taking at fairs or churches,
social gatherings, and things like that. And you could literally walk in, sit down for your photograph, and walk away with it 15 minutes, 10 minutes later.
We love this image because it is so clear, and usually with tintypes, they're very durable.
Oh, this is sorry, say it?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the most expensive photograph in our collection. It dates to probably around the 1870s. These 2 men are extremely well dressed. A lot of people have complained that the guy sitting on the lap looks like he's not that much into it. He looks a little bit shy or something. And what we say to that is that this is a pose that would have been orchestrated by the photographer. These guys were told to do this, and there's probably 2, 3, 4, 5 other images of the same couple. We only have this one, and we've only ever seen this one, but for other images that were posed somewhat differently. But we think the photograph has a beautiful sense, a beautiful quality to it, and a beautiful, obviously the man on the right has a very determined look that, they're a couple, and the man sitting on the lap is being a little bit shy and turning his head away. But they're holding hands. They have dressed up. They've obviously spent a lot of time getting ready to have this photograph taken. So I don't know why it's the most expensive, other than a lot of people wanted it almost as much as we did, and we prevailed, and so it's in our collection now. We call this Clive and Morris after the movie from the 1980s titled Morris, based on E.M. Forster's short novel, Morris.
Yeah. And if you look closely, their tie clasps are identical, matching, as well as the tie pin. And so
It's a gorgeous photograph, beautiful, really. And it's large.
One of the other themes that we found is the paper moon. And there's not a lot of these out there. We collected about 20, I believe, in the last 20 years. And we haven't found any
Recently, no?
yeah, it's like either we have them all or everyone's keeping them now because they saw them in the book. But again, this would be somewhere at a fair or a place where people could do something that was fun, but they would probably have them in a studio as well. And the photos that we collected from the moon, they always have some type of loving touch in them, like this one with their hands on their knees, just their fingers barely touching each other.
And one thing I just realized as we were talking about this, the time period for the paper moon photographs tracks the umbrellas as well, 1860s to the late 1920s. Well, what that says, but. All righty, so this is, people often ask us, what are the stories behind the photographs? Unfortunately, there are very, very, very few. In fact, there's only one, and it's this one. These two American soldiers who fought during World War II across Germany, the man on the left is John Moore, and the man on the right is Daryl Burns. Okay, so Neal and I came across this photograph and other photographs of these two that were very tame. If you look at this pose there, it's a very tame pose. It doesn't reveal a lot. We would call, when we're looking at photographs, Neal and I have to believe that it's at least 50% likely that the two men are a romantic couple. In this photograph, we would say it's 0%. But in the next photograph of the two of them, it's getting a little bit stronger. And it's getting closer to the 50-50 rule that we have, and that it's 50% likely that they're a couple. And then you go to another photograph of theirs, two more, and here they are outside their headquarters and sitting on a fence after a swim. And they're in Kitzbühel, Austria in these photographs. And at the point that Neal and I found these few photographs, we were saying to ourselves, looks to us like they're a couple by the expression in their eyes. They're not portraying that in their embraces or their hand holding or kissing or anything like that. They're expressing it through their eyes. And because the photographs were not expensive, we went ahead and bought them. And it was probably half a year later that, let me add one more thing. These two soldiers were members of the 42nd Infantry Division, whose nickname is the Rainbow Division. If you look, John is standing in front of the Rainbow Division signs. And here is a photograph of a building in Kitzbühel, Austria, where they had somebody paint the rainbow on the side of the building and the 42nd Infantry Division above and below the rainbow. So we collected these photographs from John's nephew, who is living, and he gave us the story of his uncle's life. And it was after collecting these, it was much later that this photograph showed up, which is John and Daryl embracing in the snow in Kitzbühel, Austria in May of 1945 after the war in Europe had ended. It's an amazing photograph, and it probably doesn't show in this. You have to look really close, but they're both wearing rings that they gave each other. And John in front is wearing a bracelet that was given to him by Daryl. The ring that John is wearing on his left wedding finger was given to him by Daryl again, and John's nephew wears that ring to this day in honor of his nephew. The nephew, by the way, is heterosexual and has a wife, and they raised 3 sons together. So if you're only going to have one story, this is a good story to have, because John and Daryl, right before this photograph was taken, the Rainbow Division, the 42nd Infantry, is very famous, and 2 books have been written about it. And the reason it's famous is because on April 29th, 1945, the Rainbow Division came upon the town of Dachau, Germany. And before they entered the town, they were intercepted by some townspeople and some reporters who said to them, "Don't go into the town, follow this road into the forest, and you will come across a concentration camp." At the time, they didn't know what that meant, but very shortly after that, after following this road, they came across Dachau concentration camp and all the unspeakable horrors that were going on there and had been going on there. They liberated the camp on April 29th, 1945. Approximately a week later, Germany surrendered and the war in Europe was over. And a week after that, or something more than a week, John and Daryl posed for this photograph. So keep going. Okay. So these two men are not in our collection. They are German royalty, and they were a romantic male couple. They identified as gay. The family, the German royal family, understood that they were a couple and accepted them that way. The man on the left is Prince Friedrich Leopold, and the man on the right is Prince Baron Fritz Cherini. And they were a couple since their late teens on into the 20s and 30s and actually into the 40s. They were photographed in family settings. Here's them at the beach. And we received a book from the German president of Sotheby's, Germany. He sent this book that had their photographs in it, along with other photographs of the German royal family, starting from the 1860s and going into the 1970s or 80s, I believe. These two men were arrested by the Nazis on they were arrested by the Nazis in 1944 and sent to Dachau concentration camp. And the intersection of this couple, this royal German couple, and our soldiers from the United States in the Rainbow Division is that on April 24th, the Prince and the Baron were removed from the concentration camp, along with 139 other high-profile detainees, some prime ministers and other, politicians and so forth, clergy as well. They were removed from the concentration camp because everybody knew that the Americans were on their way and the Russians from the east, and that it wasn't going to last much longer and that time was limited. They wanted all of these high-value detainees out of the concentration camp, and they were going to shoot them in front of a firing squad in Tyrol, Germany. So just before the liberation, the Prince and the Baron were removed from the camp along with others, and the liberation happened 4 days later. And there's John and Daryl again. I can't remember why we inserted it. I think it was for the last part that I just told you about. Yeah. Postscript will come later at the end of the discussion.
So this is a wonderful photograph in our collection. It's in book page 210 and 11. When we launched the book, there was a professor from Vienna who reached out to The Guardian, who had done an article on us, and said, I know who's in this photograph. I just would love to talk to the authors and find out what the date is on the photo and who may have taken the photograph. So he says that the man on top is Rupert Brooke, who is a famous poet from the UK, and the man laying on his back is Duncan Grant, who is a famous painter from the UK. And so we dated around 1910, which that's what he thought it was. We don't know who the photographer is, but they were a part of the
Bloomsbury Group, which is an artist colony. I don't know when it started, but I think it was pretty active up until the mid 20th century.
So if it was taken by one of the other people in that group, that means that it's taken by a famous photographer. So we looked online and Google searched the two guys, and if it's not them, it's their twin. Shortly after that, a couple of weeks, we received a message from a historian in Canada, and he sent us the same information, said, in your book, page 210 and 11, that's Rupert Brooke and Duncan Grant. They were famously known to have been lovers. Unfortunately, Rupert Brooke passed away, the one with the gorgeous hair, passed away at an early age from a mosquito bite and contracted.
He was 27.
So, we're 99.9% think that it's them, just based on who's reached out to us and
our own comparisons. I mean, if it's not Rupert Brooke and Duncan Grant, it's their twins.
The 0.1% is that their names aren't signed on it.
In our collection, there are three tiers of photograph. One is a romantic male couple posing together, which is the majority of the collection. And then going one step further, more intimate, is two men and we don't collect anything that's sexual or where there's a lot of skin exposed. We're trying to keep the message of the collection in the parameters of loving couples who are in love with each other. Anything after that is conjecture. So this second tier is, we have many of them, is a male couple, loving male couple, posing in a bed, clothed, as a sign of intimacy and closeness and bonding and love for each other. And this one is dated around, we think, around 1910, because they are holding a book / magazine. If you look at the spine of the book carefully, it says Adventure Magazine on the back of it. Adventure Magazine was an American publication that started in 1910 and was published up through the latter half of the 20th century here in the United States. So this is a beautiful photograph in that they're lying, it looks like enjoying a relaxed Sunday afternoon together, and just to make sure that nobody misunderstands who they are and what they mean to each other, they've entwined their legs around one another, which is, we think, a beautiful touch.
And then the last two photos we're going to show you actually are of the same couple. The two young men kissing. Here they have three ladies behind them. It was that friends actually supported gay couples, and they actually look like they're ready to take on anyone who doesn't feel the same way about these two young men as they do. These two photos, this one and the next one, were taken in California at a place called Rocky Nook, which is a park that's by Santa Barbara. And so here they are, so that's the Pacific Ocean behind them, just a lovely group photo.
And this is the highest tier of intimacy in our collection. That's the couple is actually kissing and saying, we really like each other a lot. And we have, I don't know, probably 50 kissing photographs. Yeah.
So the second one, they wanted to, recreate the photograph of kissing, but just with themselves. And so they found the highest spot in Rocky Nook. And this photo says Rocky Nook 1910 on it. So another
Labor Day.
Labor Day. And, they're embracing beautiful kiss with the Pacific Ocean behind them, just saying, here we are for the whole world to see. And it's just a beautiful photograph.
And so we're back to loving a photographic history of men in love. These are the two men on the cover of the book. It's a gorgeous photograph. Our publisher is the one that picked it out of our collection for the cover, and we think he made a really good choice. But just leaving our presentation part of it with a few thoughts is what we've learned from our collection, what the photographs have taught us, is that love does not have a sexual orientation. It is universally felt by everyone around the world the same way. And these two men's love and our love for each other, and female couples' love for each other, is no different from our mothers and fathers and aunts and uncles and all the other male heterosexual counterparts. That emotion runs consistently through everybody the same way.
And when we launched the book, we didn't know what type of response we would have. We just knew that we loved the photos, and we knew that we had to share them. And the minute the book hit, we had so many people reaching out to us and taking photographs and saying, we got the book, we love it, and saying what this book means to them. And in the beginning, we would get 10, 15 a day. We still get a couple a day that are just beautiful. Some are heart-wrenching stories about their life and wishing they had this book prior, and some are just in celebration.
And we hope that people would receive and embrace the book. What we have become aware of is that loving photographic history is making a difference in a lot of people's lives. It either confirms where they already are, or it confirms a wish or a hope that they have for their future. And to have that shared with you is the ultimate honor for Neal and I, having just published this book, hoping people would find them as interesting as we did. And turns out it's that and more.
So we're going to stop the presentation, hopefully here, stop sharing, and open it up for questions. We would love to, hear what you might want to know.
Or comments if you just want to tell us what you think of this.
Thank you, guys.
And so we're going to have, we have the mic in front of the room, so don't be shy, come up. Thank you.
So just a reminder to our online audience, please type your questions in the YouTube chat. And for our on-site audience, please come on up and you can. Okay, let me go ahead and start with an online question. Where can we find Hugh and Neal's book? Do you have them at the House of European History shop? I'll answer the second part. We do not have them in our shop, but Hugh and Neal, do you want to let us know where they can find those books?
Sure. The book is in 5 languages: English, French, Spanish, German, and Italian. And you can find it in a lot of independent bookstores as well as larger chains around the world. We love to say support your independent bookstores first. So if you have a favorite bookstore, call them and see if they have it, or maybe they can order it for you. Then you can go to your larger chain if that maybe is your favorite book. And it's also on Amazon around the world as well. And in the US, it's also on our website at loving1000.org. And we will ship international if you want a signed copy.
Yeah.
It's
Shipping international is
it's gone up a lot because of COVID and everything else going on. Yeah.
Hello, Hugh and Neal. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. So I had the privilege to browse through your book already, and I would like to ask, I've only seen 2 photographs with Black couples. Is there a reason for that?
Oh, yeah. So yeah, there aren't very many photographs of Black couples in our book. When we went to print with our publisher, in our collection we had, so we went to print and we had about 3,000 photographs in our collection. Of those 3,000, there were only, I'd say, maybe less than 10 photographs of Black couples. And of the 10 that we had, there were only 2 that were of sufficient clarity and strength to put in the book. So that's why we only ended up with 2. And if you consider the time frame of our collection, which is the 100-year period between the 1850s and the 1950s, America was not covering itself in a lot of glory when it came to African Americans in general. They were disenfranchised in our country horribly all the way up through the 1950s and even later, and to this day, unfortunately. But I think that it was probably really tough to be a Black couple in a Black community during that time period. And I think we're told that it's tough today. And on top of that, because the Blacks were so disenfranchised in our country, they were disenfranchised when it came to photography as well, is what we're assuming. Because Neal and I have collected every single photograph of a Black couple that we've come across. And like I said, when it came time to go to print, it was less than 10 in the entire collection of 3,000. Since the book was published, a lot of photographs have been falling, out of trees, and we've been fortunate to have been able to pick up, I would say, probably about 20 since publishing. So
but
we have
20, that includes interracial couples.
Yes, right.
So it's not just Black couples, and one of them actually came from Poland. It was a beautiful photograph. Looked like 2 aristocrats with their arms embraced and just really sweet looks on
Really
their
well
face.
dressed and arm in arm, posing as a couple. And from the 1870s probably. So it's a very old photograph, and it's like Neal said, it's beautiful, very gorgeous. Don't be shy. We know you have a question. Just walk up to the mic. Hey.
I was wondering, did it ever happen that somebody recognized the picture and wrote you and said, like, I don't want to have this in the book or something like that. I'm aware. I just ask other people, and you said like you sort of you got some hints, right? Like whether they are actually brought like a couple and stuff like that. And I was wondering, yeah,
That's a great question. Thank you. The answer is that nobody has ever asked us not to publish a photograph, nor have they complained about any that we have published. And part of the reason, in fact, the majority of the reason for that is simply that the relatives of these couples are gone and the couples are gone. The age of the photographs, even the youngest ones, prohibit anyone to be surviving today. And so we never felt as though we were outing people. And also, more importantly than anything about what I've just said, is that if you look at our book and the 16-page essay that we wrote, we never refer to the subjects in our photographs as gay or homosexual. We deliberately avoid that. This is a bad time to talk about it. I know it's Pride Month and everything, but for our purposes, what we declare that these couples are couples who are in love with each other. Sexuality is another step that we can't go to unless we know that they themselves identified as gay, which in the case of John and Daryl were the only two men in our collection that we know identified as gay.
And it's like in the introduction, we hope someday that, that isn't even a discussion, people are
Right.
people. And so we wanted to portray that message. And in the book, what we have found is, we have straight people, gay people, male, female, everyone buying the book. And the one consistent comment that they say is, wow, that's beautiful. That's love. They never say, oh, those two pictures, that's a picture of two guys in love, or look at those two gay guys. They always comment on love in the photographs in the
Right.
book.
Yeah.
So, which means, our message is coming through.
Yeah, and when Neal and I first started to entertain the idea that we could maybe turn our collection in, we felt a strong sense of obligation to share our collection with other people. That happened around the 13-year mark. And it took us about 4 more years to actually get things going to publish the book. But when we were thinking about our collection in terms of a book, we thought, well, what would the cover look like and what would the title be? And when we just looked at our photographs, all of them, large numbers of them, the word love came up, and that was a little static. So we went to loving, and Neal and I titled the book Loving, and it miraculously survived through publication, and that's the title today. So that's what the message of the book is, and that's what the message of our collection is.
Actually, I want to step in. Someone was asking about where to get the books. If you're looking it up, usually loving and putting in Hugh's name or my name, you can Google and find it on where it's sold. It's sold for in France, where the edition is called, I don't know if you can see, it's called Il S'aime. It's a little too low there, but the French used a different name for the book, which means they love each other. Okay.
Hello, I'm Ottavio. I wanted to thank you so much because it's really moving to see how you transformed something that was your passion that grew in time, step by step, and you made the exercise of historical memory, for the whole community, because everything was hidden and or lost or secret. So it's really incredible what you did. It really makes us all more strong. What I wanted to ask you, and it's a bit weird because now your presentation was so amazing, so everything is really clear and moving, but so all the questions are, why there's nothing of this and why? So I wanted to ask you, did you find many pictures of women romantic?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we get asked that sometimes. Actually, we did see in our searches, we did see photographs of women, and I almost hate to give this explanation, but it's the truth. And the truth is that a lot of times when you see photographs of women during this time period, they are performing for a male audience. Now, that's not a thing that Neal and I personally understand very well. We just know that it's a thing for heterosexual men. And so these photographs are a little bit difficult to detect what's going on. And they're more rare than the photographs we collect. So we haven't seen that many along our journey, but we have seen a few. We know that there are some out there. In fact, we actually started, we have what, 2 or 3 at this point?
We
It's a start. You know, we started with the 1 and 2 that we showed you at the beginning of the presentation. So who knows where this is going to end up.
We hope that there is a lesbian couple or a straight woman who,
Or a gay couple.
or gay couple who said,
Anybody.
yeah, has started a collection like we did. I mean, this one has taken us 22 years, and several people have said,
And it
you know,
wasn't
what,
cheap.
and why don't you, why don't you create a book about women? We would love to if we had started collecting photographs of women back then. You know, it was, we didn't realize we were collecting photos the first couple of years.
We didn't start this collection. This was an accident. And in fact, our essay is titled The Accidental Collection.
So we hope, and we're happy to help anyone who has a collection to introduce them so that they could have a book published of women photographs. We are seeing more coming out. It's interesting because maybe we're just more aware of it. I doubt it, because
No.
we're pretty aware of everything. The book has really opened up the door to more photographs that are out there. They're a lot more expensive since the book came out as well, but that we knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
That really leads into a really great question we got online from Marty. Marty wants to know, do you plan to work on a new book anytime in the future?
Yes, actually, we have talked about our publisher, our distributor in the United States, and us have been talking about a second volume since we started working on this one. Because Neal and I have now approximately 3,700 photographs. There's more than enough for a volume 2. One of the ideas that Neal and I had was, because our collection, 20% of it is military from all over the world, going all the way back to the American Civil War and up through World War II. So what the collection seems to be telling us now is that volume 2 should be loving the military edition. There's some reluctance on our publisher's part on doing that at this point, but we have time to work this out.
Yeah, but we have 30. There's 315 photos in this book, so we have 3,400 photos to select and create another beautiful book. Just so you know, our publisher, Eric Gisels, is from Brussels, so which is great. He lives in Italy now, so the publishing company is 5 Continents Editions. And I just want to do a quick shout out, because we had wonderful co-publishers that said, we want to push and publish this book during COVID. The book launched in October of 2020. And so, it was their passion, and they felt it was a story that needed to be heard. So Elizabeth Sandman Verlag in Germany, and Lasarnez Lazarens. My Texas accent, I'm going to slaughter everything. In France, and Duomo Editions in Spain, and then ACC Art Books in UK and US. They really backed this. They felt very strongly that this was a message that needed to be heard. And I think another part that really made the book a success and really helped to push the narrative is that the loving embrace, because during COVID, they were saying, stay 6 foot away, don't touch each other, don't breathe out, so that human touch and interaction that we all enjoyed with a hug, seeing your friend, was stripped from us. And that you're given this book of photographs of showing that love. And, we've been told that was a big part, and just, of making people embrace the book as well.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Hugh and Neal, for your wonderful presentation. And thank you to our audience on site and online for your questions. The time has come for our first round. Actually, first, can we get a round of applause for Hugh and Neal, please? Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
And thank everyone for showing up and being a part of it. We really appreciate all of you showing up there and online. And again, the House of European History for having us.
So the time has come for our first round of raffle winners for today's event. I know you guys are excited. We have drawn 2 names from I will draw 2 names from our on-site audience, as well as 2 names from our online audience, who will each win a free copy of Hugh and Neal's book. So without further ado, Congratulations to our on-site winners. We have, let's see, George Pepios. Congratulations, George. And we have Edward MC, perhaps? Yay, congratulations. You guys can collect your books right over here. And now for our online. Okay, for our online winners, we have, let's see, Rebecca Puroy. Congratulations, Rebecca. And David Cox. Congratulations, Rebecca and David. For online winners, be sure to send an email to our official House of European History email address, which you are going to see in the YouTube chat. That way we can set up our shipping for you. Okay. So thank you so much, first to Mr. Robert Biedroń for his powerful message at the beginning of this session. And thanks, of course, to Hugh and Neal for sharing your photos and the stories. And to all of you who have watched and participated in the first half of Through the Lens of Proud Lovers. For our audience online, we encourage you to leave your feedback and comments in our YouTube live chat. And please, of course, stay tuned for the second part of our event where we're going to raffle off 4 more copies of Loving. And we're going to hear a statement from the youngest member of the Austrian Parliament. And we will look through the lens of proud lovers in Central and Eastern Europe with Mr. Florin Buhuceanu. We look forward to seeing you right back here in just about 30 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, to the second part of our Through the Lens of Proud Lovers event here at the House of European History. We're happy to welcome you all back, both here at the museum and online. I'd also like to welcome our special guest for this part of the event, Florin Buhuceanu. Hi, Florin. I want to remind our
Good evening.
I would like to remind our audience to be sure to enter our raffle for your chance to win a copy of the photo collection book, Loving, which you can do on site by writing your name here at the table, or you can do online by leaving a question or a comment in our YouTube chat. So we're going to start the second session with a statement from the youngest member of the Austrian Parliament, Yannick Shetty. When Shetty became active in politics at the age of 18, there was not a single openly gay member of the parliament. Now, as a member of the NEOS party in Austria, Yannick Shetty proudly serves as an openly gay politician who strives to provide a bright future for younger generations and is committed to bringing equality, rights, and respect to the LGBTQ+ community in Austria. Mr. Shetty has been kind enough to provide us with a recorded statement today.
Hi, my name is Yannick. I'm 27 years old and I'm member of the Austrian Parliament. And I'm openly gay. I say that like this because back then when I got involved into politics in 2013, there was not a single member of parliament openly LGBTIQ. And today, in the year 2022, there are 6 out of 183 members of parliament openly part of the LGBTIQ community. So this shows, in the past few years, there was a lot of progress, not only regarding policies, but also regarding representation. And in the end, I believe these both things, so legal progress and progress in representation, these both things go hand in hand. So there was a lot of progress in the last 10 years, but still we have a lot of work ahead. So for example, a few weeks ago, due to the political pressure of my party, NEOS, we reached that the ban of homo and bisexual men from the blood donation has finally stopped. And still, there are other things to do for us in Austria, but especially if we have a look across our borders, we will see that there is still a lot of work to do. Even in the European Union, when we have a look at Poland or Hungary, we can see that there's not only a lack in progress, but even a real backlash. There are autocrats, like Orban in Hungary, who openly violate human rights. And they do this by campaigning this. And if we even broaden our perspective and have a look on the situation on other continents, we will see there's still, you have to imagine, in the year 2022, there are still 6 countries in which there's death penalty for homosexual actions, and more than a dozen countries where you can get into jail for same-sex actions. Of course, the Pride Month is an occasion of celebration of love, of parades, of rainbow flags, but we should not forget that the first Prides were so political, and we should get, so I believe, back to these roots. And we should spread this message, especially in a time where we are confronted with a war of Putin's Russia against the Ukraine, which is even more than just a war between 2 countries. It is a war of an authoritarian regime fighting the European way of life, the open society. So let's all celebrate this Pride Month, but let's not forget, of course, the issues we are confronted in our home countries, but especially in countries abroad Europe. And in the end, let me introduce to you the next speaker, Florin, Director and current Vice President of Accept, and who is a Romanian LGBTIQ activist. He will speak to you about LGBTIQ activism in Central and Eastern European countries. And I think this is a very good transition to what I told you before. I wish you a very good conference, and I'm happy to meet some of you maybe in the next time in person.
Thank you so much to Yannick Shetty for that wonderful statement. Our next speaker, as Yannick introduced, is going to be Mr. Florin Buhuceanu. He's going to help us look through the lens of proud lovers in Central and Eastern Europe, specifically Romania. Florin Buhuceanu is the Executive President of the Euro-Regional Center for Public Initiatives. He is also the Advocacy Director of Romania's national LGBTI rights organization called Accept, and the founder of the Museum of Queer History and Culture based in Bucharest. Mr. Buhuceanu has authored and contributed to a number of reports and books focusing on LGBTI rights and issues, and has organized many exhibitions highlighting this community in Romania. Pride events today play an important role in Romania, and Mr. Buhuceanu will help us understand how these events bring visibility to an often invisible minority. Please help me welcome Florin Buhuceanu.
Thank you for this opportunity. I hope you can hear me and
we can hear you. Can you turn on your?
See me?
Can you turn on your? There we go. Now we can see you.
Yes. I'm also a historian and a technical idiot, so please forgive me about the technical gaps I might be confronted with. I would like to speak a little bit, to present a little bit about cruising history in a territory of knowledge that's still foreign to historians in Romania. And I'm speaking here about LGBTI histories, histories of love and visibilities. It's still an taboo or an uncovered subject for several reasons, I will say. Right up to 1989, when the communist regime collapsed, the memory and cultural representation of LGBTI people were basically part of a history of the impossible. These people and their histories could not be, under any circumstances, serious object of research. They were not even mentioned because legally we as LGBTI people did not exist. A totalitarian state, if we can speak about this topic, whether we are talking about a fascist state or a communist state, could not accept basically the existence of LGBTI people as part of a minority group with a legitimate type of existence. They is actually subject to police surveillance and prisons if became public knowledge, usually through complaints and denunciations. The repression faced by LGBT people from 1936 till 2001 in Romania included various tactics of terror practiced more or less systematically by the Romanian authorities. They were categorized as degenerates, deviants, and corrupters of public morality, often being legally and socially punished for their identity. Same-sex love was also considered outrageous and immoral, and it was not exactly noticeable in the public space. Most often, the stories of same-sex love were hidden and remain unknown, since could easily attract police investigation, interrogation, blackmailing, conviction, legal conviction, and social or professional condemnation. If the legal repression that began in 1936 with the new penal code is fascist in its nature, actually systematic arrest and convictions just started in that period. We were getting closer to the World War, and priorities, I would say, were rather different in this country, while the gay community did not have yet a public identity. Those who were out, especially men, were rather exceptions. Female homosexuality was not taken seriously in the same degree, since the lesbian or bisexual women were rather invisible in the eyes of police institutions or even in the eyes of media. And clearly the image of the gay men, lesbian women was not exactly produced, reproduced, distributed by them, but by doctors, police, judges, and of course the written press, more or less hunting for sensational stories and images. On the other hand, in many ways, the legislation of 36 brought to light new identities organized around sexual relations, male, male, female, female, relations that were legally and morally defined as not compatible with the standards of the bourgeois society. And what's interesting, and I have to underline that, what was previously considered private from 1936 could become public and outrageous in the eyes of authorities. In practical terms, that means that private is not anymore private. The state and its agents can interfere in your private life and demask you, threaten you, arrest you under the legal concept of public scandal. Basically, even our existence was considered to be a public scandal, and that was not exactly legally defined and produced a lot of abuses. I'm speaking here about Article 431 of the Penal Code from 1936, 1937 that criminalized acts of sexual inversion in case it provoked a public scandal. And basically this vague definition in many ways indicates the beginning of the restriction of public space to the detriment in the favor of control. And the Article 431 actually led to imprisonment from 6 months to basically 2 years. We still don't know at this moment how many gay men and how many lesbian women were sent to prison under this article of the Penal Code. Overall, however, the Romanian state, unlike the German state or Soviet Union, used the anti-homosexuality legal provisions less systematically in those years. That means that the arrests were not conducted in a systematical way. We were not confronted as LGBTI people with show trials that the communist regime would later implement under the direct Soviet influence. Since from 1950s, the situation of gay people has worsened considerably. Systematic arrest, intimidation, public attacks started to become the norm. And they were designed to terrorize and fight against any type of public visibility and public identity of these people. Homosexuality is more and more associated with the public enemy, with the capitalist and decadent West, threatening the social order of the new communist regime. And what's interesting is that this black image of the gay man portrayed as public enemy is actually managed to survive during the entire communist era and had its own career under the post-communist regime. I will say that fear and terror coexisted, however, with the joy and the intensity of love, hoping, and sharing ideas, sharing space and friendship with those few whom you trusted to call friends. The history of homosexuality includes not only the series of homophobic attacks and persecutions, of course, but also the history of relationships. And this is what we are celebrating during the Pride event, starting with this month, with June. On the margins of public life, gay life existed and developed in private homes, in cinemas, in public baths, in those public areas such as big boulevards where you could be visible and invisible in the same time in terms of identity, traditions, rituals, some codes of communication, discrete communication, interpersonal, and of course intergenerational relationships have been created despite all prohibitions and fear inspired by the Romanian states. And yes, public spaces were the main space, were the main area of a gay topography, mostly for men, simply because it could ensure anonymity in the first place. Few benefited from a private space in those days where they could feel protected. And in the same time, you could always justify your presence in that public space because it was accessed by anyone, everyone. You could easily explain why you were there, what you are doing there. I will introduce several names. I hope that we can find some photos of Petre, Sirin, and Mihai Radulescu. Petre Sirin was young. The guy, on the right side of the photo was a student, and Mihai Radulescu was a famous thinker. Their relationship became famous for its intensity, as well as for the fact that it was somehow presented, described, preserved in the diaries wrote by each of them. Diaries who didn't manage to, were not confiscated basically by the Romanian police or security. They survived well, and they were published after the collapse of Ceausescu regime. Mihai Radulescu, the left side of the photo, was already imprisoned for homosexuality in 1959, died as a hero, refusing to become a denouncer and traitor to his friends and the gay group he belonged to. Basically, he managed to kill himself in a arrest cell in Bucharest. Another couple was formed by George Tomaziu, who is now portrayed, quite a known painter, and together with his boyfriend Dinu Albulescu, they got involved in actions of espionage against Nazi Germany and fascist Romania in the 40s. And they didn't respond well to the communist authorities when they were blackmailed for homosexuality. Actually, Tomazi was quite a rebel, while Dinu Albulescu, a more vulnerable gentleman portrayed in this drawing, basically refused to become a collaborator of the secret police. Dinu, Tomaziu's boyfriend, refused to give information about his gay friends and committed suicide in 1965. It's, that year when the West was already talking about liberalization, decriminalizing homosexuality, talking about sexual revolution and practicing sexual revolution. However, in our case, we can speak about numerous victims of gay victims of the communist regime. In many ways, it was an act of self-sacrifice that was well known to all his gay friends. Giorgio Tomaziu showed these friends this last drawing that's depicting Dinu in a coffin, and made a photo of that drawing and circulated the photo to all friends as a sign of remembrance of the one who was his boyfriend and his lifelong friend. Others, to be honest, were not exactly courageous and did indeed collaborate with Securitate and police units. They were used in various ways in several trials, or were used by Securitate, by militia, by police, for collecting information for the usage of the repressive apparatus. And some of those informations collected from gay informers were used to arrest especially gay men. I want also to introduce a rare photo of the bisexual woman and writer Olga Kaba. She was already under surveillance for political reasons for a very short period of time. She was a leader at the regional level of a democratic political party. She had an interesting strategy to survive communism. She managed to keep a very low profile of her relationship with another woman. By moving in a small city in Transylvania, she thought that in this way she will not be under the eyes of Securitate. What's even more interesting, if not striking, is that Olga Kaba managed to marry legally her partner, Erika Teco became Eric Teco. Probably Erika was an intersex person, and she managed to get a mastectomy and asked to be recognized legally as men, and that became possible, which led to their marriage. And it's interesting that Securitada kept an eye on both of them, but basically was much more interested in their political activities rather than didn't collect information in terms of identity or in terms of they were not exactly, Securitada was not exactly interested in understanding the nature of the relationship between Olga Caba and Erika Teco, Olga Caba and Eric Teco. After 1989, when debates about gay identity started to appear in the media, especially, but also in parliament, the whole series of arrests continued. And I'd like to mention here just to name the love between Ciprian Ciucu and Marian Mutashcu, two young men who were denounced by family. This love led to their arrest and conviction. When he was released from prison, Marian Mutashcu committed suicide in the first decade of the 90s. Basically was not able to resist in front of the public pressure in that small town from Transylvania where he lived, in which he lived. The lesbian woman, Mariana Chetiner, was imprisoned for a declaration of love she made to another woman who denounced her for this gesture. After 3 years in prison, Mariana was released after very intense national and international pressure, after being declared the first prisoner of conscience on sexual orientation by Amnesty International, and pardoned by the Romanian president in 1998. All of these people are heroes of a community that started to speak out and come out in those years. In the 90s, the first gay groups were established. The first gay magazine, called Gay 45, was published for a short period of time. I think it was published in just two numbers, 2 issues were released. In 1994, the Bucharest Acceptance Group is formed to become a voice and an actor of the gay community in Romania in relation with public authorities and the Romanian media. After 1996, when Accept Association was created on the base of the existence of Bucharest Acceptance Group, the international pressure upon Romania was well coordinated with national initiatives led by Accept, and tried to put an end to the legal repression in Romania for LGBTI people. What's I would say striking is that the concept of public scandal from 1936 appeared again on the radar of authorities, was reused, legally speaking, as a way to terrorize the gay community and justify the existence of the anti-gay legislation and the anti-gay hysteria that dominated the public space, but also the debates in the Romanian parliament. I remember that the executive director of Accept, Adrian Coman, in those days, mentioned repeatedly that a significant part of our existence as a human rights organization in those years was basically dedicated to come out collectively, to speak with media, to depict who the gay man and who the gay woman are. And we try to formulate the public voice of the gay community. Of course, we were heavily involved into lobby and advocacy activities in a time when religious and traditional values were deployed as a kind of instrument for preserving the existence of the anti-gay legislation. Romania, unfortunately, was the last country member of the Council of Europe that decriminalized homosexuality extremely late in 2001. And I do remember that in those days, the patriarch of the Romanian Orthodox Church actually tried to use as a kind of instrument of blackmail the idea of provoking a national referendum on this topic in order to solve forever the issue of homosexuality in Romania. And it didn't pass, but the whole idea of provoking a national referendum to block access to rights for LGBTI people remained on the radar of the anti-equality groups and institutions. I will try to mention also that even after the repeal of the Article 200 of the Penal Code that criminalized homosexuality, this anti-gay, anti-equality forces continue to operate. Of course, they repeatedly try to block any kind of visible identity for the emergent LGBTI community. I do remember that during the organizing cycle of the first gay pride in 2005, the level of harassment was quite significant. And it came from both authorities and extremists, radicals. In 2006, we were confronted during the second Pride March with a significant level of violence. Some people were injured, were beaten. At the end of the march, Molotov cocktails were used. The image you can see now is from the 2005 at the end of the first Pride March. It was a sense of, I would say, common liberation. We felt that we made history at that moment, managing to show up, managing to show a face for the first time of this community. Managing to endure the attacks from various institutions, and that Pride actually became now probably the largest human rights event in Bucharest. You can see an image from the Pride in 2000, I would say 18, if I'm not mistaken. It looks a little bit different. Many more people on the streets of Bucharest. You see the Arch of Triumph. It's a nice area, you know. The police is discreet and very able to keep at margins the protesters and attackers. Our people felt safe. And that basically led to very large gay marches, at least for the LGBTI gay marches, at least for the Romanian standards. I think we were around 10,000 people or more in the few last years. That's significant for a minority that didn't have a face, a public face, for so long. It doesn't mean that the legal discrimination against the LGBTI community does not exist. We still face threats. In legal terms, to give an example, our right to family is not even taken into consideration. In 2009, in 2009, we basically faced an unprecedented situation while the penal code and the legal civil code were modified. Our relationships were considered basically illegal explicitly, so were declared unlawful. Despite the fact that I can get married or even be part of a civil partnership somewhere in Europe or in United States, that marriage or civil partnerships will not be recognized by the Romanian authorities. And that law, unfortunately, is still used against us, and created a base for other attacks against family rights. Between 2015 and 2018, we faced an unprecedented campaign against LGBTI people, disguised under the pretext of saving the sanctity of families, saving the sanctity of heterosexual marriage. You will see now not a poster, a banner in one central place, I think it's in Timișoara, asking to vote in favor of heterosexual marriage, while the definition of marriage in the constitutional text actually was neutral. So it was clearly a backlash. The anti-equality forces actually managed to raise enough signatures and managed to create a constitutional referendum, while our tactic was to boycott such a referendum that deprived LGBTI people from their family rights in the most important text, the constitutional text. Finally, that referendum was invalidated. So we managed to convince people to remain in their homes and not to vote against LGBTI people. Basically, it was a huge success for our community. However, the attacks against LGBTI rights continued. Just last year, I will say in 2021, legal initiative was introduced in the Romanian Senate by 7 members of the Hungarian party. It's a copy-paste of the propaganda law that's operational in Hungary, and basically it's using child protection as an excuse to attack and decrease the rights of the child and LGBTI rights in Romania. So basically, what they are proposing is to mutilate the law on children's rights, violating basically any convention on the rights of the child, and introduce censorship, censoring education, censoring communication. Basically, the Romanian society will not, should not be able to present information in the public space, in the educational space about LGBTI identities, about LGBTI people, because it's affecting children. With such a law, any depiction or even discussion of diverse gender identities and sexual orientations in schools, in mass media, and advertising, even any legal, not legal, but psychological counseling for these teenagers will be outlawed. If this law is implemented, children would not have access to information on sexual and reproductive health and rights, which plays a key role in preventing and raising awareness on sexual abuse. By example, mass media will be under attack because kids, adolescents can have a look to a debate or a movie and showing LGBTI characters, and that will be against the law. So this type of proposed legislation is really worrying. It passed in the Senate in a tacitly, if that's the right word. And now it's it's in the Chamber of Deputies under debate in various commissions. It's essential to block this type of legislation, because it's not just about our rights. It's also about fundamental rights such as freedom of assembly, freedom of thought, freedom of expression in various ways. I also would introduce actually another piece of law that we managed to block in 2019, 2020, a law that passed the parliament to eliminate any reference to gender equality, gender expression, gender identities in the educational space. It's incredible to see the level of hysteria among these anti-equality groups and the level of coordination with other similar groups in various countries such as Russia or United States, trying to suppress the visibility of the LGBTI communities, trying to evacuate us from the public space, and that's simply outrageous in the 21st century. However, I would like to mention the fact that in 2018, and I'm trying to conclude, we managed to win to get a major victory. Accept Association actually supported the Coman and Hamilton case that created history at the level of the European Court of Justice. Basically, it's a married couple that couldn't receive a permit of residence in Romania because their marriage is not recognized in our country. And the the European Court of Justice in Luxembourg actually explicitly stated that no matter what countries such as Poland, Hungary, Bulgaria, to nominate few, some Baltic countries consider valid as marriage in their countries, you cannot block the rights of families when they are traveling from one country to another country within the European Union, and once you get established in another country of the European Union. So basically, freedom of movement should be applied, should be recognized as such in the case of LGBTI families. That decision of the European Court of Justice is still not applied by the Romanian state or by Bulgaria, Poland, and a few other former communist countries that are now members of the European Union. And we managed to create another legal strategy and went with this case to the European Court of Human Rights, which has a mechanism in place for applying sanctions to countries like Romania, simply because we want to live in freedom as individuals and as families. And we will not stop by celebrating and defending our rights as individuals and families. In the end, Pride is about celebrating rights, and this is what we are doing in Romania and in the region. We continue to count on your support, and we will continue to count on your solidarity to be sure that we'll be efficient in blocking this type of anti-LGBTI initiatives that are not acceptable in the European Union in 21st century. Because it's quite late, I would like to stop here and invite you to formulate questions, if possible. Thank you so much. This hybrid event is quite something. I mean, I'm thrilled that's
Thank you so
still
much for
possible.
that really wonderful presentation, Florin. I just want to remind our viewers online to go ahead and type in your questions into the chat, and I will step out here. Also for our viewers online, even if you entered and asked a question in the first half, to be entered into the raffle for the second half, we still need to hear from you this time around. So feel free to do that. And I'll open up the floor to our on-site audiences. If anybody would like to come up and ask a question, be brave.
Hello, Florin. Thank you for talking to us today. I'm Andrew. I was wondering about the role of the church in Romania, because I know that in some of the other of the newer member states, that after the fall of communism, that the churches didn't seem to have moved on from before the Second World War, and they've gone back to the old repressive atmosphere and are helping create an atmosphere that makes it difficult for our gay and lesbian friends to join us in the kind of freedoms we have in the western part of Europe. Can you tell us something about that, please?
Yep. I will try to rapidly answer to your question about the role of the church. In the Romanian context, it's the Orthodox Church as national church. At the end of communism, so after 1989, the church started to recuperate the public space and tried to get legitimacy after a long-term collaboration with the both totalitarian regimes, the fascist and the communist regimes. And it was quite striking to notice the way they started to legitimize their public profile in the Romanian society. Basically, the church started significant crusades, a number of public campaigns for maintaining the anti-gay legislation that again started in 1936, continued to exist till during communism and in the first decade of the 90s. And in many ways, we can speak about the Romanian Orthodox Church as the main social institution that managed to keep alive the anti-gay legislation by exercising a strong pressure upon parliamentarians. So the Romanian parliament was bombarded by requests to decriminalize homosexuality, starting with 1993 when we joined the Council of Europe, when we get membership, and try to find tricks to avoid this. And I'm afraid that the state managed to forge a connection with the Romanian Orthodox Church in order to keep alive this legislation that produced victims. Men and women were sent to prison because of that legislation, under the intense pressure of the Orthodox Church. I'm speaking here about campaigns, tons of public signatures sent to parliament. The Romanian Orthodox Patriarch actually tried to exercise blackmail upon the parliament by invoking, by asking for the preparation of a national referendum. It was an ugly history simply because they used the anti-gay card to demonize them. They used the means of spiritual violence to fuel the homophobia in the Romanian society, and it's still the case today. The same church actually, together with other religious groups, managed to raise enough signatures to raise a referendum that was supposed to rewrite the Romanian constitution and rewrite the definition of marriage based on family that's composed, that's a relationship between a man and a woman. I'm not sure that's the legal text, but I hope that you got the idea. The same church actually was the initiator and the most aggressive actor in this anti-gay referendum, and suffered the shock when the referendum was not didn't pass. They simply couldn't believe that's possible in a highly religious society, in a highly religious country, and still try to find ways to restart the anti-LGBTI campaigns in one way or another way. So yes, religion is playing an influential role in attacking LGBTI rights, in attacking the rights of the women to access abortion, attacking the rights of children and teenagers to get sexuality education in public schools, and so on and so on. It's regrettable.
Thank you so much, Florin. We have a question from our YouTube chat. Kazian asks, is there one most important incentive that makes you resilient and keeps you on track as you move on as an LGBTQ activist over the decades?
Oi, I have no clue actually how to answer to these questions, because I didn't even think in this terms. I guess I'm stubborn. I have exceptional colleagues around me, and we manage somehow to support each other on long term, not to collapse individually and collectively. And I will say that I considered our mission, our job as human rights activists, as important for the entire society. Of course, it's vital for our community group, for the LGBTI community, but it's that kind of battle that's it's redefining the Romanian society and the society in the whole Eastern Europe. It's a battle of values. It's a battle of for rights. And I will say, what's important for us is to demystify the need to have hierarchies of life, the need to dismantle this mythology that the freedom of religion, by example, should have preeminence in relation with other fundamental rights. In many ways, it's a battle for the survival of the Romanian democracy, which is still young and not exactly mature in our countries, and that's highly motivational, I would say. And yes, I guess I will get older doing the same thing in one way or another. Yeah, I will remain the warrior in a country that is considering you someone who should remain marginal and invisible as much as possible, and that's way too late. I cannot live like that, and we as entire community cannot live, you know, in such a way imposed by homophobic society. It's a battle for survival at individual and collective level. Let's put it this way.
Tavio, and I wanted to thank you very much for what you told us and the strength that you had in fighting against in a difficult situation, because because of time. When you started doing all of this, it was much more difficult than today. And also because objectively in Romania, there were some elements, like I'm Italian, so the Catholic Church is very strong. But the Orthodox Church, I have the impression that it's even more pervasive and stronger getting into society. What I wanted to ask you is, today, do you have allies, both politically, like political parties or members of parliament, or and also in the institutions, like the ombudsman, is she helping Renate Weber, or not really, because she has a history of NGOs and of voting in favor of LGBTI rights? So I was wondering, is she helping somehow? And also the Liberal Party and the Socialist Party, I have the impression that it was not supportive at all in the past, but if you can tell more about that, what do you see in the future?
Mm-hmm. I'm afraid that some of your perceptions about political parties, and you nominated two of them, are correct. Sometimes, you know, in this local context, the liberals are not necessarily liberals, and the socialists are not necessarily socialists. When we speak about a number of human rights issues, and it's our job in many ways to exercise pressure upon them to convince them what they are what they are supposed to defend as democratic political parties. However, I will say that there is an improvement in terms of political realities in the last few years. More and more politicians are willing to speak up in favor of LGBTI rights, and that's remarkable in itself. There is one political party called Union, Uniunea Salvați România, the Union, I cannot even translate it, the Union for Saving Romania, I'm sorry for this, that's liberal, which is part of Renew Europe, and it's embracing LGBTI equality as part of the larger human rights agenda. So that's progress for sure. A number of European parliamentarians from Romania are firm in supporting LGBTI rights and try to convince the local authorities to do small steps. And they will be vital when, our case, our family case, it's a collective family case that's now pending at the level of the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg, will get a decision. It's the task of these parliamentarians to implement that decision and make family rights a reality in Romania for LGBTI people. And I hope that I will see this year or latest next year this decision. It's still difficult because their membership is not necessarily, I will say, sorry for this expression, educated in terms of difference. We were not visible for so long, let's face it. We miss from the public space for so long. We still have not so many LGBTI groups and organizations throughout the entire country. I guess that they are less than 8 right now, more or less organized. And usually our precious support is coming from you guys, from Western Europe, and it's usually effective to exercise pressure upon your political parties that are members of the same political families in which our parties are member of. So by collaborating with you, in many ways we can indirectly influence our own political parties. And I hope that soon we'll see Romanian politicians who will say simply, directly, I'm gay, I'm lesbian. It's the right time. We cannot wait indefinitely for that. And this political party should also represent their gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender members. It's a duty, it shouldn't be an option.
Thank you so much, Florin, for sharing your story and your important work with all of us. We really appreciate it. Can we get a round of applause for Florin?
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much to our audience on site and online for your great questions and for making such a really good discussion. So before we draw this event to a close, the time has come for our second and last round of raffle winners for today's event. The raffle winners will win a free copy of Hugh and Neal's book, our speakers from the first part of our event. So without further ado, congratulations first to our on-site winners. I'm going to pull 2 names here. So the first winner on site is going to be Daria Del Neo. Yeah, congratulations, Daria. Our second winner on site is going to be Niels Tinnernans. Congratulations, Niels. And then for our online winner, congratulations to Gilberto Canstini. Congratulations, Gilberto. And congratulations to Paul Deans. Wonderful. All right. So on behalf of the House of European History, I want to extend a sincere thank you both to Mr. Shetty for his powerful statements, to Florin for sharing his voice, as well as our presenters from part 1 of today's events. For our audience online, we encourage you to leave your feedback and your thoughts and comments on our YouTube live chat. For those of you here on site, we have our evaluation forms on the table. We encourage you to fill those out as well. Thank you so much to all of you who have joined us and have been a part of today's event through the lens of proud lovers here at the House of European History. Thank you, and we will see you next time.